What do you have for us, Soraya?
Yeah, the first question was about the ecclesiastical endorsement.
Okay.
And could you cover just one more time, if you've already applied to BYU, do you need to do that again? And also it was asked, can a mission president do your ecclesiastical endorsement?
Uh, yes, absolutely. A mission president can do your ecclesiastical endorsement. And if it is a mission president, it's only that one person that needs to do it. If it's not a mission president, it does need to be your bishop and your stake president. If you have a current ecclesiastical endorsement, it may satisfy the requirement. You may not need to do it again. It depends on how old your endorsement is. And so when you go into apply to the FlexGE program, you'll be able to look up and see if that endorsement is valid and current. And if you've got questions about it, again, you can call or email or chat with us about your endorsement.
Okay, the next question was from a student who has completed an associate's degree through high school. So they'll be coming in with more than 60 credits. And they were wondering about classes that are available that may be related to majors, prereqs for programs. This one specifically asked about the biology program. And then also whether classes at FlexGE count as residency at BYU.
Great questions. So it's a little tricky if you're coming in with an associate degree. Most of the classes available to FlexGE students are general education classes. And if you have an associate degree, you've pretty much completed all of your general education classes. There are a few GE classes that BYU requires that an associate degree will not satisfy, but not many. And then it really depends on the major whether or not there will be major classes available. Some majors have quite a few classes available in the evening or at the Salt Lake Center, and others there's not much. And so I would recommend you schedule an appointment with an advisor, one of our advisors, and they can look at that major that you're thinking of and give you some specific information about which classes you could take that would still count.
I think there's a reason why there's not too many classes available through the evening program for majors, because until you're officially admitted, you don't know if you're going to need those classes for sure. 'Cause what if you go to another school and their classes are different for that major? So talking to the biology department is possible as well.
Yeah, and I did forget about the residency. There was a question about residency, and classes taken as a FlexGE student do count as residency at BYU if you're later admitted to BYU. It doesn't really matter if you're only in FlexGE. We don't really have a residency requirement for FlexGE, but if you are later admitted to BYU, the classes you took as a FlexGE student will count as residency.
We had a question about whether we can do this program without a GED.
You have to have somehow completed high school. So if you did not graduate from high school and you do not have a GED, you will need to go and complete that GED.
And we have a student from BYU Idaho who's currently there, and they're really interested in the program. And do they need to leave BYU Idaho? Can they leave BYU Idaho right now? Or should they wait until they're accepted to FlexGE? What would their process be?
We do occasionally have students who are currently enrolled at BYU Idaho take classes as a FlexGE student. So that is possible. Yeah, did that answer that question? I think that answered that question.
Yeah, once in a while, a student will be dual enrolled. They'll maybe move to Utah because they want to be in Utah, start taking FlexGE, could still take online BYU Idaho classes.
Yeah, for sure.
Is this available after serving a full-time mission?
Absolutely. We love return missionaries. In fact, we have an initiative that kind of caters to those missionaries who return kind of in an awkward time, maybe like right after the semester starts, and rather than having to wait all the way until the next semester, we have some second block semester classes. So if you get home from your mission after fall semester classes start, we do have some second block fall classes that start later on in October that you're welcome to jump in on.
The biggest question is, can you eventually become an actual student at BYU through this program?
So
That was favorited.
Yeah, participation in FlexGE is not a guarantee for admission to BYU. However, we have found that students who do the FlexGE program have a little bit higher chance of being admitted to BYU as a transfer applicant than a transfer applicant who comes from another university. And that's most likely because you've come here and proven that you can be successful in BYU classes and that you are committed, true blue BYU.
There's a couple questions in the BYU application essays that ask, how are you preparing yourself for the academic rigor? It's a great way to say, I'm taking your classes.
Yep.
And then there's a question that asks, what will you contribute to our BYU community? And you can say, let me tell you what I am contributing if you're here. So those are two ways that it can give you a little boost in the application.
Absolutely.
Do FlexGE students also have access to sports facilities like the gym and the pool?
They do have access to those. This is one area where it's slightly different than admitted BYU students. Admitted BYU students have free access to those facilities. FlexGE students do have to pay a $50 fee per semester to use the facilities, but they are welcome to.
There's another question about mental health resources for students that have mental health issues. I looked up the comprehensive clinic. That was the other office on campus that can help.
That's correct.
With counseling. The University Accessibility Center can help with students who have paperwork to show ADHD or anxiety where you can get accommodations. We have that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And they are happy to help FlexGE students.
There's a specific question about housing. It's is the village allowed to live in?
So FlexGE students are allowed to live anywhere. You could, yeah, there's no requirement for FlexGE students where they have to live. The village, I can't remember off the top of my head if it is a BYU contracted housing. I want to say it's not.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's not on the contracted approved list.
And this is something to be aware of. BYU changed its housing requirements just a year ago. And many of the housing complexes that used to be BYU contracted are no longer BYU contracted. And FlexGE students are welcome to live there, but they're not BYU contracted.
There was a question later about whether you'd get the chance to live with other FlexGE freshmen if you were in contracted housing.
There's a very good chance you can. And we actually have a Facebook group that there's a link to on our website. And we have students who go on there sometimes and say, hey, I'm looking for FlexGE roommates, but it would be up to you to arrange to live with other FlexGE students, or maybe just, luck, you ended up with one in your apartment.
There's a question about the scholarships. How many are awarded or compared to how many that apply? And there was another related question about what's the max amount a student could get from the FlexGE scholarship. So
most FlexGE scholarships are at a 30% of tuition, and we typically have, I would say, about 120 applications for that scholarship per semester, and we award about half of that. I think about half of those who apply get one.
About applying to FlexGE, if you don't attend right away, do you defer? What if you leave on a mission?
Great question. So FlexGE students don't defer. The purpose of deferment is because it's so hard to get into BYU. So once you get in, you want to hold your spot. FlexGE, it's not hard to get into. We are open enrollment as long as you meet the base criteria that I mentioned right there. So what we recommend is that if you're going to go on a mission, that you wait until before you're coming home to apply to the FlexGE program. If you do end up leaving while you're a FlexGE student, like if you do a semester as a FlexGE and then go on a mission, you can reapply again as you're getting closer to coming home.
Here's another one about applying to BYU. If I do FlexGE for a semester or two and then I want to attend BYU as a regular student, would I have to apply as a transfer student?
You do, yes, you do have to apply as a transfer student, and that application, there's three different application deadlines each year for transfer applicants. Most FlexGE students, it makes the most sense for them to do fall, possibly summer, then fall and winter semester, and then apply by the deadline in the beginning of June to be admitted to BYU in the following fall.
Does FlexGE offer Bio 381? So could you go over how a student could look up available classes in FlexGE?
Sure. On the FlexGE website, there is in the How to FlexGE section, there's a page called Class Planning. It's either on the class planning or the class registration page, one of those two pages. But there's a link on there to where you can look at the class schedule. And then on that class schedule, you can just look up a class and it will tell you all the different times it's offered and whether it's an evening class or a Salt Lake Center class. Anything that says evening or Salt Lake on it is fair game to you. If it's that's during fall and winter. During spring and summer, any class that you can look up, you can take. I mean, as long as it doesn't have like a prerequisite that you still need to do, but yeah.
So I know for fall classes, availability posts April 1st.
Yep.
But if you're curious about general availability, you could look up winter semester 2024.
Yeah, you could look up past semesters and kind of get a feel for what is offered. But yeah, the schedule for this coming fall will be published on April 1st.
So when you were talking about co-enrollment with Ensign College, does it mean that you have to attend Ensign College?
It does not. We do recommend that if you sign up for that you intend to finish that degree at Ensign before you transfer to BYU. And that will require you to do some of your classes at Ensign College. You do have to have residency at Ensign. But to earn that degree, yes, you will have to take some Ensign College classes.
Will this presentation be available after Zoom?
It will definitely be available. We are recording this and we will post it on the same page on our website after the last info session.
After receiving 24 college credits, do you need to take the ACT?
You do not. In fact, BYU is not currently requiring the ACT for any applicants. That could change in the future. I think they have a deadline where it will be required. But as a transfer student, if you have 24 credits, you do not need to take the ACT.
Yeah, and once you have 24, you don't need your high school transcript anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
Some students like to let that one go. Okay, so we have another student that has 64 credits from high school concurrent enrollment. Does that count towards, how does that count and how does BYU see that? Had another student that was asking if their concurrent enrollment counted towards the 24 number.
Great question. So the 24 credits have to be graded credits, and at least one of the credits has to be completed after high school graduation. So you may have, what was it, 64, I think they said. Those 64 will, if they're graded credits, they will count towards the 24 credit threshold, but you need to do at least one more credit after you graduate. And you can do that through FlexGE.
Another topic. We still have about 30 questions, Clint. Can I apply to be an MTC teacher?
Absolutely. In fact, teaching at the MTC, they just underwent a change about 6 months ago, and it's no longer even a BYU student job. It's just a church job. So you don't even really have to be a BYU student at all to teach at the MTC. Although I do think they give preference, and we do have quite a few FlexGE students that work at the MTC.
There's another one asking about the likelihood of getting admitted as an official student at BYU. Do you want to talk about that again?
Yeah, we almost all students who enter FlexGE have a desire to be admitted to BYU. Not all of them end up applying to BYU, but of those who do, the percentage of them who are admitted to BYU is greater than the percentage of general transfer applicants. So you do have a higher chance of being admitted to BYU if you participate in FlexGE.
And we do our best to help you through that process, knowing that's the goal. We'll help you plan a balanced schedule to make sure you can keep your GPA up. We have a counselor from Enrollment Services that comes and does a workshop this semester. She's coming at the end of March to just talk about all the tips and tricks to applying to BYU. So we do everything to help you reach that goal.
Yeah, our Student Success Center also does a workshop on how to write application essays.
Let's see. How do I know what credits can transfer to other schools? So that's FlexGE credits.
Yeah, so FlexGE credits will transfer exactly the same as BYU credits. In fact, your transcript will not say FlexGE on it. To the school that you send them to, it will look like you had been an admitted BYU student. So they'll transfer just like BYU credit.
We have enough students that want to go to UVU that they can meet with an advisor and we can talk about the transfer equivalency page. Every university has a page that says your class from BYU looks like this at our school and is called this. So we can help you go through that process.
Absolutely.
What's the minimum number of credits that you can take?
Half a credit. which is what one PE class, I think, is half a credit. Although we do highly recommend that you take a full credit load. That increases your chances of being admitted to BYU if that's your goal. Also, we found that students who take a full credit load generally get higher grades too.
Sometimes we do see UVU students taking just one class so they can live in contracted housing. Maybe they have a goal to transfer to BYU in the future. Can you live in on-campus housing during spring and summer?
Absolutely. And the process for that, they do give priority to admitted BYU students for spring and summer in the on-campus dorms. Right now, I believe on March 1st is when the admitted students can start applying to live on campus. For our FlexGE students, that date is going to be towards the end of March. They haven't published the exact date yet, but it will be towards the end of March when they can start signing up for on-campus housing.
For students who want to attend this fall, can they apply for FlexGE right now?
Yes, the application is open, and once you've completed your endorsement and the application, you'll hear back within 3 or 4 days whether or not you've been admitted.
And here's a registration question. Can you address class availability regarding registration and class size? Is it first come, first served? Do admitted students have priority over FlexGE students?
Great question. So BYU does what they call priority registration. That means the very first people that get to register are graduate students and seniors. And then next is juniors, and then next is sophomores, and then next is freshmen and FlexGE students. So FlexGE students get to admit at the same, get to register for classes at the same time that all the incoming freshmen do.
Another one about the FlexGE application. Is there an essay that I need to write? Because I haven't seen one.
There's not. No essay to apply to FlexGE.
So generally, what would be the likelihood of a student getting accepted to the Flex program?
So those requirements that I mentioned before, 17 years old, graduated from high school, at least a 2.0 GPA, citizen of the US, ecclesiastical endorsement. If you've got all those things, can just about guarantee you're going to get in.
There's not currently a cap.
Yeah, we don't have a cap on FlexGE. So as long as you meet all the requirements, we'll let you in.
Can FlexGE students go to freshman orientation?
Absolutely. That's something that we are excited that they just started allowing FlexGE students to do that this past fall and winter semesters, and it's been a wonderful experience. We actually they group all of the FlexGE students together, and we do a special session just for FlexGE that's focused a little bit more on here's some things to do while you're in the FlexGE program that can kind of help prepare you for admission to BYU. And yeah, it's a great opportunity.
So this question is about a student attending in the summer. They were asking about being able to apply for the fall, but maybe they meant winter. So say we have a high school student graduating, attending summer term, can they apply, I would think, for the winter term?
Yes. So if you have already applied to be admitted to BYU for this fall, you can't apply again to be admitted to BYU for the fall. There is an opportunity to apply for this fall coming up in June, but you have to be a transfer applicant, meaning you have to have graduated from high school and completed some college credit after graduating from high school. So for most of you, that's probably not going to apply. There is an application deadline of August 1st to be admitted in winter semester, and that is an option if you are interested. BYU does their recommendation, if you are going to reapply, is that you are different from the last time you applied to BYU. For many of you, that will be that you have completed your high school diploma and have new grades on your transcript from your senior year, and possibly even accumulated some more experiences, extracurricular type experiences that will help round you out. And if that's the case, and your GPA is in the sweet spot I was talking about before, it might be worth it for you to apply to be admitted in winter semester to BYU. And if you do that, you can participate as a FlexGE student during the fall semester, and then you would step right into being an admitted student in winter.
A question about financial aid. Assume you do the co-enrollment and get a Pell Grant through Ensign College. Will it pay for BYU classes?
It will pay for those BYU classes that are valid for your Ensign College degree. So, for example, if you picked the medical, I think they have a medical assisting degree at Ensign, an associate degree. If you pick that degree and then you take a scuba diving class at BYU, that scuba diving class is probably not going to be eligible for federal financial aid because it's not required for your Ensign College medical assisting degree. But if you were to take maybe a basic nursing class, I don't know if any of those are even available to FlexGE students, and it's one that's required by that medical assisting degree, then yes, you might be eligible for federal aid for that one.
Can a student apply to BYU and FlexGE at the same time?
Yes, absolutely.
And when backup plan.
Yes, we are happy to be your backup plan. In fact, we typically recommend, if you have not applied to BYU yet, that you go ahead and apply before you try FlexGE out, if that's your goal, to go to BYU.
So I thought I'd pause just for a second before we do a few more questions. Sometimes we start to lose attendance when they get through this long list of questions. Yep. Clint, could you just talk about what you love about the FlexGE program? Absolutely. And maybe share an example of how you've seen it work for students.
So the FlexGE program is pretty new, actually. It's only been around for about 4 years, but it is um, uh, basically what we did is we took 3 programs that were pre-existing at BYU for decades, and we brought them all together under one office. Those 3 programs were the Salt Lake Center program, the Evening Student Program, and the Spring Summer Visiting Student Program. Those were available through 3 different offices at BYU, and we brought them all together under our office. And then we started to really work on providing support for the students in that program, which those previous programs didn't have really any support for the students in them. And seeing students come and have this BYU experience that they've dreamed about their whole life, and learn how to become successful, and then participate in all of those activities and events and clubs and things like that, and just really grow as a person, and just have that transformative BYU experience. That is what makes all the difference for me. I love that. And that's why I do this.
I have a thought about the program too. I just wanted to say, I never was a BYU student. When I was in high school, I prayed about it, sat down to do the application, and got the feeling that I should go somewhere else. So I went to UVU for 2 years, and I went to the University of Utah, and now I get to be a part of BYU as an employee, and I love the environment. I love that the spiritual growth is included in the whole framework of classes and activities. It's been a great opportunity for me to be able to see what it's all about. It's an individual path for everyone. So everyone listening right now is gathering their information and trying to decide what the best next step is for you. So we're here to give you the information so you're able to make a good choice on that. So we support students in whatever direction they feel is best for them, but we're happy to answer your questions so you can know if this is the program for you.
Yeah. And I should mention too, even if you don't end up being admitted to BYU, or you decide after doing FlexGE for a while that you're going to go to a different school, having a BYU experience for your freshman year there's nothing like it. It is truly a unique, transformational experience.
Okay, I'll get back into the questions.
Okay.
Are students eligible if they don't have citizenship or permanent legal residence?
That is a good question. And there is, we have a list on our website of those who is eligible and who is not. I'm going to go to that on my, go to that really quick. And okay, so for those who need an F1 or a J1 visa in order to remain in the US, you're not eligible for FlexGE. But if you are able to study without that type, without a F1 or a J1, you can. And that includes people who need who are F2 or J2 visa holders, permanent residents, refugees, those with temporary protective status, and even undocumented students are eligible to participate in FlexGE.
It's mainly because the government made the rules, not us.
Yeah.
So can a student attend FlexGE in the summer and then also fall and winter?
Absolutely, yes. And I think I did maybe see a question about how long you can stay in FlexGE. We don't really have a cap on how long you can stay, but you cannot earn a degree as a FlexGE student. We don't offer any type of FlexGE degree. And so most students stay only a couple of semesters before moving on to whatever they're going to do next, whether that be BYU or another school. If a student gets up to 60 credits, we actually will put a registration hold on their account and require them to come in and meet with an academic advisor. And we'll sit down and go over with them a plan for getting matriculated somewhere and finishing their degree.
So this is a good transfer question. Is it easier to transfer to Provo from BYU Idaho? I actually worked at BYU Idaho.
I did. I worked at BYU Idaho for 5 years. And I will say that you have a little bit higher chance of getting into BYU if you do FlexGE than BYU Idaho. That's kind of the stats. But again, that changes student by student. That's generally.
If that needed to be your path, then it's possible and would be really great to talk with an advisor to make sure you're taking classes that would transfer well to BYU Provo.
Absolutely. And I should say, my own daughter, her first attempt to go to apply to BYU, she was not admitted. And she did a semester at BYU Idaho, and then went on a mission and then applied to BYU and was admitted at that point. And then I have a son who just applied and did not get in, and he's looking at FlexGE right now. I kind of have encouraged him to do that, but if he wants to do something else, that's great too.
Can you take FlexGE classes that are also prereqs to majors?
Yes, you can. It does depend on the major. Some majors don't offer any prerequisite classes in the evening or at the Salt Lake Center, and so you wouldn't be able to do those unless they offered them during spring and summer during the day, and then you could. One very popular one is the business programs, and almost all of the business prerequisites, depending on which business major you want to do, are available for FlexGE students.
I have a lot of psychology classes too.
Oh yeah, lots of psychology.
I've seen like elementary education has some as well.
Mhm.
How soon can you apply to BYU after FlexGE? Do you
Uh,
have to go for a semester?
You do not. You can apply whenever you want. And if you want to, what we tell students, BYU does not penalize you for applying more than once. And so if you want to apply, and if you don't get in, keep going as a FlexGE student and apply again later, that's totally fine.
We've totally seen students that have applied 5 times,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It makes a difference if your application looks a little different each time. You can consider, do I need to show more academic preparedness, or do I need to show more sharing of the BYU aims? I've had students apply like once out of high school, twice over the mission, once in FlexGE before they got grades. And that application would basically look the same every single time. So you'd want to add something new to it.
For sure, you want to rewrite your essays every time. Don't submit the same essays.
Don't keep talking about high school.
Yeah.
Let's see, we covered that. How do you sign up for classes? How would a student get good instruction on how to do that for the FlexGE program?
Yeah, so on the FlexGE website, there is a page that instructs you how to plan what classes you want to take. And then also a page that explains how to use the registration system. And BYU just released not too long ago a beta version of a new registration system that is much more user-friendly than the old one, and doesn't really take much getting used to before you know what you're doing with it. And our academic advisors can totally help with that also, or you can even just call or chat or email with us.
There's a question about specific statistics on getting admitted to BYU from FlexGE. Enrollment Services does have their own website that talks about general admission statistics.
Yeah, it's typically the percent of transfer applicants generally overall, not FlexGE transfer applicants, but overall transfer applicants to BYU are admitted to BYU at a rate of about 65%. That varies a little bit from year to year, but it's usually about 65%. FlexGE students who would apply to BYU are admitted at a rate higher than that, but we don't publish that statistic.
Okay, this is about housing. If you live in contracted housing, say for 2 semesters in FlexGE, and then you get admitted to BYU, does it count towards BYU's requirement?
Yeah, so BYU has that fairly new housing requirement that requires that all incoming students live for their first 2 semesters, either in the dorms on campus or in BYU contracted housing. That includes transfer applicants. If a FlexGE student lives in contracted housing while they are a FlexGE student, BYU will count that towards their 2 semesters.
If a student takes 12 credits in fall and winter, do you need to wait until winter is over before you apply for fall 2025?
We recommend that you do. The fall transfer application opens up. It's probably already open for this coming fall. It opens pretty early, but we always recommend that FlexGE students wait until after winter semester before they apply. You've got about a month after winter semester is over for you to put that fall application together.
And at that point, your high school transcript wouldn't be needed anymore.
Yeah.
If you have 24
Yeah.
credits.
The 24 credits doesn't count until you've completed the credits. And so if you're in the middle of winter semester, you probably won't have those 24 credits yet.
So this date is really important because a lot of our students come in not knowing what the transfer student application date is. It's extended past the freshman date.
Yeah.
So if you attend fall and winter, grades this year posted on May 2nd, and the deadline to apply for this fall for transfer students is June 3rd.
Mhm.
So if you're going into the next year, attend fall, winter, wait until grades post at the beginning of May. The deadline for fall 2025 is June 2nd.
Yeah. It's just those freshman applicants that they make apply like almost a year in advance. But the transfer applicants have a lot longer before they apply.
Here's a tuition question. The amount that you had posted, was that per semester?
That is per semester, yes.
What is the difference between being a visiting student during the summer versus a FlexGE student?
That's a great question. And there sometimes has been a little bit of confusion about this. I mentioned before that FlexGE is a compilation of 3 pre-existing programs. And one of those was the spring summer visiting student program. That program no longer exists. That program is FlexGE. It's part of FlexGE now. We do have something at BYU called the Visiting Student Program, but it's not the same thing. The Visiting Student Program is now just for students who maybe are already going to another school and just want to take maybe one class at BYU, or students who want to just audit classes, or if they've already gotten a bachelor's degree and want to take a class or 2. That's what the Visiting Student Program is now.
Are FlexGE students eligible to work on campus through BYU employment?
Yes, and we highly recommend that you do. It's a very great experience and will most likely help. We actually have data that shows that students who work in a campus job are more likely to get higher grades and stay in school.
Yeah, so that's any student job posting on Y Jobs.
Yep.
So when applying to BYU, is there any time of the year that is easier to get in than another?
There's not. There's no advantage of trying to time, which semester or term you're applying for. You have the same chance each time.
A question about the limit of how many semesters you can take in FlexGE. We don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have a limit, but once you get up to about 60, a hold will be placed on your account.
So if we have a high school student who's interested in applying for winter semester, do they complete the freshman or the transfer student application?
Freshman. They would still be a freshman applicant. You are a freshman applicant until you've taken some college credits after graduating from high school.
See, if you're taking FlexGE fall 2024 and want to apply winter 25, would you be a transfer applicant?
You'd be a freshman applicant.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I repeated.
Okay.
I've gotten into the new questions. Is transferring from Ensign the same process as applying directly to BYU?
So anyone who wants to come to BYU as a transfer student has to apply through the transfer student process.
Can you take all classes in summer or just flex?
Yeah, you can take any classes offered at BYU during spring and summer.
And what is the max amount of credits that a student can take?
So for during the fall and winter semester, it's 18 credits, which is the same for admitted BYU students. And during spring and summer, it's 9 credits, which again is the same as admitted BYU students. We don't recommend that many. That's like insanely hard. We recommend FlexGE students take 12 to 14 credits per semester and 5 or 6 credits per term.
Yeah, summer term is a time to be really careful about which classes you select. It's all new and it goes double time. You'll complete the class in 8 weeks instead of 16. So it's better to go in cautiously, get your feet under you, and then add more.
Absolutely.
How does on-campus housing work for summer semester?
So you will need to go to the BYU on-campus housing website. There's a link from the FlexGE website in the How to FlexGE section. There's a housing page. From there, you can get a link to the on-campus housing site. And there is an application form that you'll have to fill out. That won't be available to FlexGE students until the end of March.
This one's about essays for BYU's application. What's the biggest difference between students who get accepted and students who don't?
Well, I am not part of the admissions office, and I can't see students' applications or why they made the selections they did, but I work closely with them and talk with them quite often. Those who are admitted obviously are going to have grades in that range that I talked about, but also they have participated in activities and written about those activities that help show that they subscribe to the aims of a BYU education. That those 4 things that I mentioned, the spiritual, intellectual, character, and service and belonging.
Enrollment services is really open to having students make appointments and talk about their application. So if you're just really baffled of why you didn't get in or what you could do more, they're happy to talk with you about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, is FlexGE accredited?
FlexGE is part of BYU. All of the classes are BYU classes and which are accredited. So that is kind of a tricky question because when you talk about accreditation, you're usually talking about a degree program. And FlexGE doesn't offer any degree programs, but the classes that we offer through FlexGE are accredited classes, yes. And you will be, in all of your classes, you'll be mixed in with admitted BYU students.
Okay, there's some repeat questions. Just to confirm, you said that FlexGE student applications are accepted as transfers at a higher rate than 65% for regular admittance. How much higher?
I'm not at liberty to say. We are careful about sharing that because of our relationship with the BYU admissions office.
Sorry, flipping through. Could you talk a little bit about the housing situation and whether students would be able to room with freshmen?
Yes, you can room with freshmen as long as those freshmen are living off campus. And not all freshmen do live in the on-campus dorms. Some of them do live off campus. there's not really a way though to say I only want to live with freshmen unless you go and find those freshmen yourself and say, let's all room together. And there are some housing complexes that generally have older students and some that generally have younger students. It's probably a good idea to just call and talk to the housing complex and say, give me an idea, are you mostly freshmen or are you mostly older students or what?
And then it's also really important if it's not contracted housing to ask how they manage guys and girls in the apartments, because will be some that won't guarantee that it will be all guys or all girls. So that's an important question to ask.
Yes.
And then how long does the ecclesiastical endorsement stay valid?
I think it's about a year and a half, something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Students, I've met with a couple high schoolers recently this week, and it seemed like it said it was still valid until summer 2025.
Yeah.
But like Clint said earlier, if you open up your account, then it will tell you how long. There will be a date listed there.
Yep.
Are there any options for online BYU FlexGE?
Not much. We have a few online classes available in a couple of different formats. One of them is what we call an on-demand format, and that's where the lectures are pre-recorded. And you don't have a specific meeting time. We also have a live remote format, and in that one, there's a specific meeting time on Zoom that you would have to attend. There is another program called BYU Independent Study that you're welcome to take classes through. Those are online also, but they do not follow a semester format, and you're by yourself in the class. You're just working through the class independently. But yeah, for the most part, FlexGE is an in-person experience.
What would you say about a 3.4 GPA and chances of getting into BYU?
It's a little bit on the low side, but definitely in the range where people are admitted to BYU.
Do most Flex students transfer to BYU after 2 semesters?
Most FlexGE students move on, I should say, after 2 semesters. Not all of them are admitted to BYU, but they typically either go to BYU or another school after 2 semesters.
Admission seems to like to see at least 24 college credits, and they may have said that in your letter that you got from them.
Yep.
I think that's it for the most part, Clint.
Okay.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that stands out?
I think we got just about everything. We really appreciate all of you being here. We're going to be holding info sessions again next week and the week after. If you're a glutton for punishment, you can come again. It'll be the same presentation, but maybe the questions will be a little bit different. And then, like I said, we are going to post a recording of this on our website after the third info session that we do. If you do have more questions, please reach out to us on our website. There's a phone number, there's a chat option, there's our email address. There's also a link where you can schedule a one-on-one appointment with one of our academic advisors. You're welcome to meet with our advisors, even if you're still trying to decide if you want to be in FlexGE or not. They're very good at helping you make that decision. Thanks again, everyone.